To me introducing the compound interest formula, it may look a little nasty and complicated, but I hope that a quick run through as to what everything actually means, and also using it in an example, I would hope that afterwards you would be more inclined to use this method than method 1 from the previous video, purely because it just saves a lot of time. And in an exam scenario, if I were to ask you to calculate, say, 20 years worth of compound interest, you probably don't have the luxury to sit there and use method 1 to do this. So it is probably quite handy to familiarize yourself with this formula. In terms of everyday uses, not only can you use it to calculate the amount you might make, say, in a savings account, but also the amount of interest you're paying back on personal loans. You could use this formula for as well. So it does have its everyday uses. Okay, let's go through what everything actually means first of all. I feel like that's probably, let's pick a pretty color, a good start. Okay, so this is your final amount. So at the end of your time period, this is what you're left with. This is called your principal amount. And that's your initial amount you're going to be starting off with. I'll come back to this number 1 in a little bit. Going to R, this is our interest rate. Interest rate, but this is as a decimal. So, for example, if you're given, say, a 3% interest rate, you don't put 3 in there. You do have to convert that as a decimal, so it'd be 0.03, for example. N is the number of times compounded. Number of times compounded per unit time. And I've said per unit time because in the previous video I spoke about years, but we could be talking about days, or we could be talking about weeks, months, years, so the time period could really be anything. In terms of what that actually means, is that an amount may be compounded twice per time period. So that would be a number 2 would go here underneath the interest rate. And that's exactly the same number that would go there for this N. They are the same number. And T is our time period. Time period. And again, that can be anything. Weeks, days, months, years. Depends what it's asking us. So let's use an example. Let me get my rubber. Get rid of this for a second. And let's pick a different color. Okay. So let's take our £500 again, like we had in the previous video. I'm going to say 2% interest again, but this time I'm going to leave it there for 12 years. So what is my amount after those 12 years? Okay. So basically we're just going to plug these numbers in. So 500 is our principal, amount. So 500 goes there. Now our 1 essentially means 100%. I already said that our interest rate has to be converted to a decimal. So this is saying it's 100% of that 500. That's what we're starting with. Plus. And our interest rate is 2%. Now, I'm going to say that it's just compounded once every year, which means that would be divided by 1. Usually at GCSE, you don't come across questions, or haven't really found you come across questions where that would be a different number from 1. It's usually just compounded once per time period, and that obviously doesn't affect our overall value at the end. But I will put that number in just to show you. So Again, 1 goes there. It's compounded once per year times 12, because that's our time period. So just simplifying that out slightly, we end up with 500 times 1.02 to the power of 12. Now, if you put that into your calculator, you should get £634 and 12 pence. And that's the answer. That's it. And obviously, plugging that into your calculator, plugging these numbers into your calculator is just a lot quicker. Okay, so let's take another example. Get rid of this. I'll leave the formula up there. Okay, let's take a slightly larger amount this time. Let's say I have different color again, obviously. Okay, £6,200 I have. Lucky me. And in an imaginary world, there is a savings account that's going to give me 6% on that per year. And I'm going to leave it in there for 10 years. What is my amount that I get at the end of those 10 years? So again, my principal amount is just my 6,200. It's compounded once a year. So I'm just going to put 1 plus my interest rate of 0.06. I'm not going to put divided by 1 this time. Hopefully that's kind of cleared it up from my previous example. And then to the power of 10. And that's it. Plug that into your calculator and you should get a quite healthy sum of £11,103.26. That's rounded to the nearest penny. Nearest penny. And quite often it'll say round to the nearest penny. And that's essentially everything. That's compound interest. If you have any questions, feel free to message me and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you for watching.